Wow. Well, that was the most fun I've ever had watching African Nations Cup. And not anything you could have seen coming. So let's get into this. Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. Before I go any further, I just want to mention the African Nations Cup has 6 groups of 4 and then a round of 16, which means the top 2 teams go through and then 4 third-place teams. So let's start with Group A, Equatorial Guinea playing against the Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria playing Guinea-Bissau. Now, the Ivory Coast are kind of in trouble. I mean, they are the hosts. I picked them as tournament favorites. A win would have guaranteed that they go through in the top 2 spots. A draw would have at least put them in a position where most likely they were going to go through in third place. Now, Nigeria, they did their job. They went and got a lead in the first half. They get the 1-0 victory, get to 7 points, and that assures that they are into the next round. So what was going to happen between the Ivory Coast and Equatorial Guinea? Well, you can imagine all of the Ivory Coast fans are like pumped. Let's go. Let's get behind the team. We're going to win this and get through to the next round. That is not how it went. It turned into an epic disaster. Equatorial Guinea win 4-0 over the Ivory Coast. Surely one of the worst results they've ever had in their history at home. This was a total calamity. And to be honest, they have no one to blame but themselves. Obviously, they were a little bit nervous at the start of the match. Equatorial Guinea are not a team you just take lightly. But the Ivory Coast were in control. Nicolas Pepe gets a huge chance. Go down, man. I mean, he gets basically cleaned out, gets his knees almost taken out, and he does a pretty admirable job to stay on his feet. But why? This to me is just bizarre. It's so rare to see in the modern game that a guy takes that kind of contact in the box and doesn't immediately fall over. And this warranted a penalty. But because he didn't go down and he kept playing and had an opportunity to shoot, the referee just kind of let it go. And then that's it. Chance gone. And then the Ivory Coast would pay for it. Emilio Nsue, who has had a fantastic tournament, we'll talk about him in a bit, but he puts Equatorial Guinea 1-0 in front, and this is a problem for the Ivory Coast. For them, it was so important that they did not let this fester, that they got back to it, that they tried to respond as quickly as possible, and they basically did. Sangare prodding home a header inside the box, but he was offside. It was pretty clear. So it's 1-0 for Equatorial Guinea going into halftime. Obviously, the Ivory Coast are going to get G'd up in the locker room. They're going to be like, let's go. I mean, it seemed pretty good. They came out the blocks firing in the second half. And Dika missed a header, but then it was Sangare. Blasts this ball somehow up into the stands from like 4 yards out. Focus, score, make it 1-1. Has to be the miss of the tournament so far. But they got another chance. Ball gets floated in the box. Equatorial Guinea just miss it. And Christian Kwame is 1v1 and hits the goalkeeper. I mean, come on, guys. How many chances do you need? Then in the 65th minute, triple substitution. And the main one to keep an eye on was Jean-Philippe Crasso, who scored a fabulous goal in the opening game. His impact was almost immediate, receiving the ball in the box, taking a beautiful left foot shot that hits the far post and goes in. And then we see yet another VAR review. This time he is offside by inches. And that was the last great chance before the fire. Equatorial Guinea get a free kick, and Pablo Ganet with an absolute banger curls the ball in the top corner. It's 2-0. The Ivory Coast are now desperate. Now, I understand getting desperate. You know, balls are going to go wide. They're going to get launched in the box. I get it. But from the kickoff, the composure just goes out the window. Look at this. They're trying to hit a long ball, and it just goes not to where the runners are. And within 3 seconds, it's a 2v1. Ball gets to Nsue, and he scores to make it 3-0. They would add a fourth late on. I mean, that's it. And a note to be said on Emilio Nsue. This is not a guy who's had a very illustrious career. He has 5 goals in this Afcon, which is more than he scored over the period of 4 years at one point. But the Ivory Coast. This was kind of like watching Germany thump Brazil 7-1 back in 2014. This was brutal. Everyone in the stands was shell-shocked. So that was a major surprise in Group A. Group B didn't disappoint either. Group B had Cape Verde, who had surprised everyone by qualifying after just 2 matches, beating Ghana in their first match 2-1, and then beating Mozambique 3-0 in their second to get 6 points. First to get on the board were Ghana, taking a 1-0 lead from a Jordan Ayew penalty over Mozambique. That put them in a great position, and they actually got a second one in the 70th minute, Jordan Ayew converting again, and so all looked pretty good. And Ghana had to know this because Egypt were not winning. They were actually down 1-0 at halftime. Cape Verde's Gelson Benchimol with a really nice touch and then turn and finish in the box. Really sharp. Great goal. And Egypt are in trouble. I mean, they don't have Mo Salah. He wasn't going to come back probably for the rest of the tournament anyway. He was in the stands, but they needed a reply. And they actually got a really nice goal 5 minutes into the second half. Some nice combination play down the left. Trezeguet gets in. Good finish. And pretty much from here, Egypt are just going to push and push and push and try to get a winner because 3 points is really risky to try and go through with, especially since Ghana at this point were ahead of them. And then in the 93rd minute, Mustafa Mohamed makes a run beyond the back line. He brings the ball down, lobs the keeper, scores. It's total pandemonium. But there's a VAR check, and there had to be. When I saw this, I was like, ooh, it could be handball because he reaches his arm out and the ball seems to hit his sleeve, basically right on the bicep or right below the shoulder, which according to today's rules is not a handball. See Vinicius Jr. for that example. Obviously, during this VAR check, the Egyptian players are like in knots. I mean, they're so stressed out, but the referee comes out, awards the goal, and they're just celebrating. They're so excited. Here we go. So it's 2-1. Now, at the same time, Mozambique had actually pulled a goal back against Ghana, getting a penalty themselves. 3 penalties in that match. It's 2-1, and now things are getting pretty dicey. So we are in like the 94th minute of both matches. It's 2-1 to Ghana, 2-1 to Egypt, and we weren't done. Mozambique would follow up their momentum, and Reinildo, who gave up a penalty earlier, would score a header to make it 2-2. Completely insane. I mean, this puts Ghana in a horrific position. And with basically no time to respond, that match ended 2-2. So what was happening with Egypt? Well, Cape Verde, they already qualified before this game began and won the group. So they basically had nothing to play for. They're down 2-1, and they are just pushing. Then Ramiro Montero comes down the right side, jinks past his defender and hits a cross shot. Egypt's goalkeeper makes a complete mess of it, pads the ball down right in front of the goal, and Brian Teixeira picks up the rebound, goes around him, and smashes it in the net. It's the 99th minute, and all of a sudden it's 2-2. So the permutations of this are kind of crazy. Thanks to Mozambique getting a late equalizer, Egypt actually finished second and go through with just 3 points. Now, Ghana and Mozambique are on 2 points each, but Ghana take third because they have a better goal difference. And hilariously, probably the big winners after those matches is the Ivory Coast. Because if you actually look at the table of third place teams, basically they're just hanging on by a thread. All the players are pretty much going to have to wait until Wednesday to find out if they play another match or if they're out. Either way, the African Cup of Nations is always so much fun. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. Thanks for stopping by.